transforms with acid for blood.
I'm gonna get them back.
We're trying to contain an alien invasion.
As Kirsch and his squad start to confine the specimens and piece together what happened, Wendy rushes down by herself to defend Joe from the xenomorph in the opening scene of Episode 3 of Alien, Earth. They currently suspect that the crew lost control, given that half of the crew is female. Nibs, one of the members we haven't seen much of yet, questions why they are dubbed the Lost Boys, although the others likewise joke on their own names. She is not pleased that Wendy gets to be Wendy. Curly enters at this point, but Kirsch's call from Cavalier cuts them off. He makes it clear that the goal of this mission is no longer rescue. Rather, he wants the kids to gather and confine the 5 species before bringing them to the quarantine lab located in the sublevels. Wendy discovers Joe with a few cuts, but otherwise alive and well. The xenomorph has set up a trap, but he is adhered to the wall using some kind of alien adhesive. After recognizing that these are the primary protagonists, it appears but chooses to attack in this manner by jumping onto the trailer's roof. When Wendy cuts it with a sword, the acid seeps through the floor, but then it throws Joe across the floor after stabbing him in the heart. However, Wendy saves her brother by catching its mouth during a battle with the xenomorph, and then the two of them collaborate to cage it in a hangar. But xenomorph adds Wendy to the mix. Joe hotwires the door to reopen by opening the control box and biting the wires. He didn't have to worry, though, because Wendy kills it by using a knife to decapitate the xenomorph and leaving it in an acidic mess. Joe faints as Wendy did after a trickle of her own blood, but his wounds are more worse because he was stabbed in the stomach. Soon after, Morrow arrives at the ship's bow and discovers the extraterrestrial eggs. Once more, Smee and Slightly are caught off surprise while playing around. They observe as Morrow enters the information from the bay into his mind, but he does not bind them. When is a machine not a machine? He wonders slightly, aware that they are artificial. Slightly tries not to show that he's shaken, but it seems to affect him. Kirsch quickly steps in and takes charge, but Morrow chooses to jump off the ship, rather to be taken prisoner by Prodigy when one of the eggs opens. Next, we fast forward in time. After containing the crash scene and removing the specimens, the Prodigy transports Joe and Wendy to Neverland on stretchers. Rashidi and Siberian have also returned to the gang after avoiding the xenomorph off-screen, despite being quite near to the creature last week. Anyway, Cavalier is delighted with the bounty and preps for more experiments, while the scientists work on fixing up Wendy. When Cavalier wanders down to the lab, Kirsch explains how the facehuggers operate and how Xenos spread, warning him not to approach the xenomorph egg too closely. Morrow, who is off exploring New Siam, is the only thing that hasn't been found. Morrow calls Yutani and informs the CEO of the situation. Despite being instructed to return home, Morrow does not do so even though he has the data for the specimens. His primary directive at the moment is to bring these specimens back, and he plans to do just that. Curly shows up somewhere else to visit Boy Cavalier. He acknowledges that Wendy is his favorite, but Curly argues that she ought to be, considering that Wendy is mainly concerned with her brother. Curly has suggestions for improving the state of the world. After giving this some thought, Cavalier decides to offer her some books to read because he thinks she's in the race to be one of his favorites. Under the guise of friendship, Morrow successfully infiltrates Slightly's mind and coerces him into accepting to collaborate. Wendy wakes up back at Prodigy and makes her way to the lab, but Kirsch is working on the alien egg right now, apparently able to hear the sound waves from these animals. Wendy grabs her head in agony as he cuts it apart and removes the facehugger. After a while, Wendy enters the lab, grips her head, and eventually faints. It's funny that nobody even notices her entering, or that she's unconscious. Kirsch dumps a piece of the alien from the facehugger, a small tadpole, no less, into a big tank that contains Joe's severed lung, because he is far too focused on his experiment. It finds a new habitat quickly when a drop of blood contaminates the water. The slow episode of Alien, Earth's return this week, gives us a chance to consider the show's objectives and numerous issues. Officially, the xenomorph is no longer a threat, and after Joe survives 4 encounters with it, Wendy kills it by herself, using only a knife instead of other weapons. The xenomorph leaps on the roof to reveal its blood, even though we have plenty of time to eliminate them both with this container. To be fair, we've been told that Wendy is really powerful, but this moment just makes the alien's threat seem so ridiculous. To destroy this creature, Ripley needed a space nuke in the first Alien, but on Earth, a little knife will suffice. In terms of tone, this show is also everywhere. And if the Alien saga lacks one thing, it's humor. However, we jump straight to humor as Smee and slightly exchange oddball one-liners with one another following that combat scene with the xenomorph. Even though the connections to Peter Pan are so obvious, Episode 3 somehow feels the need to drive home the point even more by defining Prodigy and describing why they are the lost boys. It's arguable whether Disney genuinely believes that its viewers are too dim to comprehend, but it also highlights the show's inadequate explication. But it's not all awful because you can see more of Kirsch and the gals and get some time away from the damsel in distress and the girl boss. Curly is a really fascinating character, and her goals of being the best and vying for Cavalier's love. At the very least, make her an interesting member of this group. Although her future role in this is still unknown, it appears to be a significant one. However, aside from that, there isn't much more to speak about. The goal of this much slower episode is to give some of the characters more depth, while also removing the alien in the most awkward manner imaginable. The conclusion, however, left a lot of room for speculation about where this one might go the following week.